everyone. Welcome to ICRA IAS. So today we are going to be covering our weekly current affairs compilation, that is from the date 2nd of May to 8th of May. The first piece of news that we are going to be covering is about the obnoxious speech that does not call for heavy hand of the law. देखिए recently the Delhi High Court है they have conducted the bail hearing of Umar Khalid, an accused in the case related to the protest against the जो सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट एक्ट आया था उसके अगेंस्ट में ये प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे एंड ही वाज बुक्ड अंडर द UAPA, that is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, for a speech delivered at Amravati, which has been seen as a part of the larger conspiracy to destabilize the government. देखिए कोर्ट ने इसमें हमें ज़्यादा पॉलिटिकली इस चीज़ के ऊपर नहीं जाना चाहिए, हमें बस ये देखना है कि क्या इसमें कोर्ट ने कहा और क्या फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच के मायने होते हैं, और हमारे एग्जाम के पर्पज से जो इम्पोर्टेंट है हमें वही देखना है. तो कोर्ट ने इसमें ये ऑब्जर्वेशंस दिए हैं कि जो दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट है दे हैव हाईलाइटेड सेवरल पार्ट्स ऑफ द स्पीच दैट इट फाउंड ऑब्नॉक्शियस और unacceptable. First, an accusation of Jumla against the Prime Minister was said to have crossed the Lakshman Rekha of the free speech. Lakshman Rekha as in the thin line that has to lie between the free speech and उसको क्रॉस करने की जो लिमिट होती है वो उन्होंने क्रॉस कर दी है. Second, the court found that the words Krantikari and Inqalab used by the accused are unacceptable. And thirdly, another observation made by the court was that the Khalid is an intelligent man who used indirect speech to goad his audience to violence. देखिए, what are the general exceptions to free speech? The first is hate speech. फ्री स्पीच ठीक है आप बोल सकते हैं, बट हेट स्पीच जो है इज एन एक्सेप्शन टू इट. एंड द सेकेंड वन एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वन इज incitement of to violence. This does not fall within the protection of the free speech because it leaves neither the time nor the scope for response or reason. Further, in addition to above, there are certain norms of religious offense that are also criminalized in India. देखिए हमें ये बात ध्यान में रखनी होगी कि इंडिया जो है रिलीजियसली बहुत सेंसिटिव है और ऐसी बातें जो है ये हार्म कर सकती है, किसी ना किसी को तो कर ही सकती है. Issues in the present case. In the present case, the speech of the accused falls outside the scope of the above said narrow exceptions, and the statements picked in the court are well within the mainstream of Indian political discourse. और आगे उन्होंने ये कहा कि देखिए a person cannot deserve to be in jail for years without a trial, and the accused in the case has already spent more than 500 days in jail without trial. In a civilized society, people cannot be jailed for speech as a regular matter. And in a civilized society, such kind of speech should attract counter speech instead of heavy hand of the state and the law enforcement machinery to silence someone. एक चीज ये भी है कि the hearing है of the case should be done on a tangible record of the events, that is things done and spoken instead of intangible things like intelligent man and use of indirect speech to incite the violence. Rising inflation cannot be fought well without global coordination. देखिए इन्फ्लेशन जो है has suddenly become a major global problem. सिर्फ इंडिया में ही नहीं, हम यूएस, टर्की, साउथ कोरिया जैसे जो देश है वहाँ पे भी इन्फ्लेशन की मार लोग झेल रहे हैं. एंड हाउएवर इन्फ्लेशन इज वन ऑफ द लीस्ट अंडरस्टूड फिनोमेना विद इकोनॉमीज एंड रिक्वायर्स मच मोर रिसर्च. मैनी मेजर एंड स्मॉल कंट्रीज जैसे कि मैंने भी बताया यूएस, टर्की, साउथ कोरिया वगैरह, ये सब अभी इन्फ्लेशन की प्रॉब्लम से जूझ रहे हैं. एंड हाउएवर फाइन ट्यून मैनेजमेंट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन इज अ मिसिंग एस्पेक्ट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स. देखिए जो इन्फ्लेशन आता है दुनिया में, ये उसके पीछे बेसिकली जो है कुछ रीजंस, मेजर रीजंस इंपॉर्टेंट है. पहला तो ये है कि सप्लाई चेन डिसरप्शंस आ जाते हैं जो कि ट्रिगर कर देते हैं देखिए, इनिशियली तो ये कोविड-19 जो पैंडेमिक आया था उसकी वजह से ट्रिगर हुआ था, और ऐसे ही जो बड़े-बड़े इवेंट्स होते हैं उसकी वजह से ये जो इन्फ्लेशन है वो ट्रिगर हो जाता है। जैसे कि अभी करंटली चल रहा है यूक्रेन और रशिया का वॉर। The price rise of food and energy products is a major reason behind Eurozone inflation. The rise in aggregate demand was caused by the largest government spending packages in American history. And in case of emerging economies, mainly demand driven inflation is more major cause. और एक ये मेन रीजन तो मतलब सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा तो ये है कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन की वजह से जो इन्फ्लेशन आता है, जो सेंट्रल बैंक्स हैं सीम रिलेटिवली इनफेक्टिव इन टैकलिंग टुडेज इन्फ्लेशन, एंड इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द इजी फ्लो ऑफ द गुड्स सर्विसेज इन capital from one country to another. Thus, if one country try to control inflation by raising interest rates, money will flow into that country and causing its exchange rate to appreciate and dampen exports. अब इन्फ्लेशन को मैनेज करने के लिए इफेक्टिवली क्या किया जा सकता है? तो वी हैव इनफ एग्जांपल्स ऑफ प्रिवेंटिंग मेजर हाइपर inflationary episodes like the record breaking cases in Germany in 1923 and Hungary in 1946 and in parts of Latin America and America in most recent times. तो इसके लिए सबसे पहले तो भाई ग्लोबल कोऑर्डिनेशन जो है मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का, ये सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है. India and France are deepening friendship. The Prime Minister of India is going to visit France to congratulate Macron on his stunning re-election. अभी जो मैक्रो हैं जो फ्रांस में वो फिर से री-इलेक्ट हुए हैं, तो जो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं वो वहां पे गए हुए हैं उन्हें कंग्रेचुलेट करने के लिए. एंड फॉर इंडिया द विजिट इज इम्पोर्टेंट टू सर्वे द इंटरनेशनल स्ट्रेटेजिक लैंडस्केप एंड टेक स्टॉक ऑफ द बायलेटरल टाइज. देखिए ये जो कन्वर्जेंस है ऑफ द इंटरेस्ट इन द इंडिया फ्रांस रिलेशनशिप, it is basically because India and France have strategic convergence on important aspects of international relations, and they both have the fundamental conviction in a multipolar world and in the concept of strategic autonomy. Since 1998, both countries have deepened the strategic partnership. जैसे कि फ्रांस ने जो है इंडिया का जो 1998 का न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट है उसको सपोर्ट किया था. इंडिया जो है फ्रांस को एक इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन में का जो है एक प्रेफर्ड पार्टनर मानता है, एंड बोथ कंट्रीज हैव कंक्लूडेड अ जॉइंट स्ट्रेटेजिक विजन फॉर कोऑपरेशन इन द इंडियन ओशन रीजन इन 2018. They also they both share the same concerns, ensuring the maritime security, freedom of navigation and overflight, and they both are fighting against the organized crime and combating climate change in the Indian Ocean region. दोनों की भी जॉइंट पेट्रोलिंग होती है इंडियन ओशन रीजन में, और ये जो वरुणा है जो कि एक जॉइंट नेवल एक्सरसाइज है, ये यहाँ पे इंडियन ओशन रीजन में होती है. तो ये थोड़ी थोड़ी छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं, इनका थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखिएगा. ये जो वरुणा एक्सरसाइज होती है किसके बीच में होती है, कहाँ होती है, क्योंकि ये चीज जो है ये थोड़ी अभी न्यूज में है ना. There are newer areas of cooperation such as connectivity, climate change, cyber security, science and technology. अब जो challenges हैं वो क्या हैं इस bilateral ties में? देखो, bilateral defense ties में France has largely stuck in the to the promised delivery of Rafale aircrafts to India, and the challenge to move from a buyer-seller relationships to an investor-investee relationships, invoking making defense equipment in India, accompanied by a transfer of technology. न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी में भी जैतापुर जो न्यूक्लियर प्रोजेक्ट है वो इंस्टॉल किया गया है, एंड इट इज फेसिंग अ लॉट ऑफ डोमेस्टिक impediments, जैसा कि न्यूज में आप लोग देखते ही रहते होंगे. What have been the measure taken by Indian relationship? The Prime Minister of India has taken Indian diplomacy to the levels of personalized diplomacy. He has invested in personal relations and made a difference in relations between the states. The PM has developed a close relation with the French president since 2003. 1970, and both Indian PM and the French president are having good terms and relationship with the president of Russia. Therefore, they can jointly work to bring the horrific war in the Europe to an end. Why the judiciary is failing? सो कंटेक्स्ट ये है कि देखिए ये जो आर्टिकल है द फर्स्ट इन अ सीरीज ऑफ थ्री सजेस्ट दैट although the rule of law is a necessary condition for the survival of a civilized society, but it is not sufficient for the delivery of the justice. ये जो आर्टिकल है जो बेसिकली आया था इट इज बेसिकली फोकसिंग ऑन जुडिशरी police reforms and civil society. What are the issues associated with the higher judiciary India? तो देखिए as per the author of the article जहाँ पे ये छपा था ये article जो है ये business standard का है. The Supreme Court has failed to do its job both as a constitutional court and a court of final appeals. It has neither been able to enforce the law satisfactorily or nor ensured the relative uniformity in the judgment so that the justice is seen to be delivered. Public opinion जो है on getting justice from the courts is unenthusiastic at its best, and this is the result of not only endless delays but also a huge variability in verdicts. ये कुछ केसेस हैं मतलब क्या हुआ था कैसे हुआ था ये थोड़ा उसका बैकग्राउंड है ये थोड़ा आप देख सकते हैं just to for your better understanding. Obviously, real constitutional issues left unaddressed ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है क्योंकि moreover in recent year the Supreme Court has taken up everything from deciding whether there should be bars on highways to whether SUV should be taxed more on entering Delhi and whether oxygen and vaccine supplies have been managed properly during the COVID-19 spike in 2021. And on the other hand, the real constitutional issues like on the legality of the Constitutional Amendment Act, the right of Hindus to administer their own places of worship act, 360 का जो abrogation हुआ था and the review of Sabarmati judgment are being left undressed for years. मतलब बहुत सालों तक इसको कोई ध्यान ही नहीं है और सारा के सारा ध्यान इन सब चीजों के ऊपर है. सो बेसिकली ऑथर यही कहना चाहते हैं कि जो जिन चीजों को एड्रेस करना चाहिए था वो किए नहीं और जो करने थे जो नहीं करने थे वो हो रहे हैं जिनकी कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है और जो कि प्रायोरिटी पे सेकंड या थर्ड भी आ सकते हैं. Courts expound on how governments cannot amend some basic features of the constitution without even defining what constitutes a basic feature. Bail, not jail, is supposed to be the norm, but the lower courts can ratify the arrest of anyone who publicly criticized a powerful politician. Has the government made efforts at streamlining the court process? Yes. How? In 1999 and 2002, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government made major changes to the Code of Civil Procedure and put timeline on the numbers of adjournments that can be given in civil proceeding and the issues of summons and filing of the written statements. Now, but practically no time limit applies if a judge decides to endlessly prolong a case. ये जो आर्टिकल है बेसिकली मेनली आई थिंक ये आपके मेंस के पर्पस से ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है. The supply bottlenecks causing power shortages. The power sector in India is going through a crisis. Peak shortages in some states have reached double digits. Coal stocks available at the thermal plants are at abysmal levels, and about 106 plants out of 173 plants have reached a critical stage. In some plants, the stocks available are just about enough to run the plant for a day or two more. The part of the problem of the poor coal stock is about rumored to be on account of the non-payment of the dues of the coal companies. Chronology क्या है power crisis की? So firstly, with summer approaching before time, power demands has shot up to the record levels. And Delhi's power demand जो है it crossed 6000 megawatt on April 28th, which is a record in itself. The second reason for the rise in power demand is the economy is recovering and the demand from industrial sector is also going up. All things put together, power demand crossed 207 gigawatts on April 29th, which is about 14% higher than what it is an year ago. So it is the increased power demand, the actual reason for the power crisis. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ increased demand की वजह से ही ये crisis आया है. जो increased demand है should have posed no problem since there was enough spare capacity available already, with coal-based stations operating at less than 60% capacity. The real problem is the availability of the coal. Generations from gas-based plants have also fallen due to high gas prices in the world market, and reservoirs too are dying up due to the intense heat, which is adversely affect hydro generation. अभी कोल शॉर्टेज जो हुआ ये तो ठीक है, ये चीज तो साफ हो गई कि भाई डिमांड की वजह से शॉर्टेज नहीं आया है, शॉर्टेज आया है कि कोल जो है वो कम पड़ गया था. तो ये कम पड़ा क्यों? तो सबसे पहले तो ये है कि ये जो कोल क्राइसिस आया है इट इज नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ एनी डेफिसिट इन सप्लाई ऑफ द कोल फ्रॉम द डोमेस्टिक सोर्सेज. सप्लाई जितनी की उतनी ही है. कोल डिस्पैचेस फ्रॉम द कोल इंडिया ड्यूरिंग 2021 and 22 were 23% higher than in the previous year. And the two main reasons of the shortage were कि इंटरनेशनल प्राइस में जो है कोल का जो राइज हुआ था, एक तो वो है क्यों, क्योंकि भाई यूक्रेन क्राइसिस है, सारे के जितने प्लांट्स हैं जो है वो दे वर इम्पोर्टिंग कोल have either stopped generating completely or are generating at much lower levels. ठीक है. And the second reason is non availability of rakes with Indian Railways for transporting coal. There is also an issue of availability of tracks since they were being used on back-to-back basis. इसमें अब क्या किया जा सकता है कि with efforts now being made to sort out the transportation problem, stocks will begin depleting faster. Thus, production has been enhanced so that the replenishment rate is higher than the consumption. Invigorating the Ayush industry. The Ayush industry in India can provide cost-effective healthcare to people across the state. It has all the ingredients of success and to coexist with the modern health systems as a choice-based system of traditional medicine. The article, ये जो given article है, it lists out measures that can be implemented to reinvigorate the Ayush ministry. China's example with respect to its traditional medicine center. देखिए जो चाइना में जो है जो ग्लोबल मार्केट जो है हर्बल मेडिसिन का, इट वाज वैल्यूड अराउंड 650 बिलियन इन 2020 एंड इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू ग्रो अराउंड 750 बिलियन इन 2022. ठीक है, सीधा सीधा 100 बिलियन का. And the Healthy China 2030 plan forecast that the value of traditional Chinese medicine market may reach 737 billion within China and globally in 2030. The growth of the traditional Chinese medicine industry in China is attributed to the immense attention to the sector that has received in the country. 1982 में the Constitution of China gave full recognition to the traditional Chinese medicines, and 2009 में there has been continuously support for the traditional Chinese medicine in the health policies. China focused upon developing quality infrastructure for the medicines and to coexist with the modern medicine under the same roof. So that is what I think the Ayush Ministry has been doing since the beginning. And what has been the progress of the Indian Ayush sector over the years? तो आयुष सेक्टर जो है it has grown 17% between ये जो 6 साल है 2014 से लेके 2020 का जो पीरियड था, इसमें आयुष जो सेक्टर है उसमें 17% की बढ़ोतरी आई है. एंड रिलेटेड सेगमेंट्स such as plant derivatives grew by 21% and plant extracts by 14.7%. और जो herbal plants हैं they grew by 14.3% during the same period. What are the measures that has been taken in India to promote Ayush system? तो देखिए नेशनल आयुष मिशन जो है it was launched back in 2014 by the Department of Ayush, Ministry of the Health and Family Welfare, to promote the Ayush systems and address the needs of the sector in a comprehensive way. इसके objectives क्या थे? To provide cost effective services. सबसे पहले तो ये क्योंकि modern medicine system जो है भी ठीक है बाकी सब but it is very expensive. Strengthening educational systems, quality control of the drugs, and sustainable availability of the raw materials. Under the medicinal plants component of the NAM scheme, the cultivation of the prioritized medicinal plants is in identified cluster zones is being supported. For the cultivation of plants, subsidies at 30%, 50% and 75% of the cultivation cost for 140 plants are being provided. Revisit the 7th schedule to improve center-state relations. ये न्यूज़ में इसलिए था क्योंकि recently the Union government revoked the orders and guidelines issued under the Disaster Management Act after COVID knocked on the India's door. And the DMAs has been the backbone of the policy interventions to fight COVID. What are the constitutional provisions with respect to the to invoking the laws? Any legislation that can be passed under an enabling constitutional provision, Article 246 talks about the union, state, and the concurrent lists, which are mentioned in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. So, considering the health is a state subject mentioned in the state list, and disaster do not find mention in any list in the Schedule 7. Therefore, the Union government invoked the Disaster Management Act by relating to entry 23, Social Security and Social Insurance, and in the concurrent list of the Constitution, it was invoked to deal with COVID-19. How was the DMA 2005 used by the state? Some states like West Bengal, Maharashtra, Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh legalized the home delivery of alcohol under the ambit of this DMA. Ironically, it was invoked for liquor delivery to promote social security and social insurance. It was also aimed to address a shortfall in tax revenues. However, at present, ये जो act है, it has been revoked. Therefore, in the presence of enabling legislation, the states will have to curtail the home delivery of the alcohol. What are the issues that plague the 7th schedule? So, the 7th schedule was inherited from the Government of India Act 1935, and therefore it is a relic of the colonial past. The list do not reflect any complex realities of India in its 75th year of independence. For example, despite having health as a state subject, the Union government was in a better position to legislate on some issues related to health, like vaccination, for instance. The states often shift their responsibility upon center. जैसे कि state highways are often classified as national highways, है ना? And the states are also ask for help of paramilitary forces in the times of crisis, despite having law and order as the state subject. States have also advocated the transfer of some subjects from union and concurrent lists to the state list. For instance, entry 58 of the union list is the manufacturing, supply, and distribution of salt. ये जो सरकारिया कमीशन and the Panchi Commission both advised comprehensive consultation between the union and state governments before moving anything from the state list to the concurrent list. And NK Singh जो है chairman जो है 15 Finance Commission के has time to time again argued for reforms in the 7th schedule. Lokpal to get permanent office at World Trade Center in Delhi. So जो लोकपाल है has now got its own office at the World Trade Center in South Delhi. बैकग्राउंड ये है कि 5 years after the लोकपाल एंड लोकायुक्ता एक्ट was passed in 2013, जस्टिस पिनाकी चंद्रा घोष जो कि रिटायर्ड जस्टिस हैं, he was appointed as the first लोकपाल along with 8 other members in March 19. लोकपाल एक्ट ऑफ 2003 क्या था, थोड़ा सा एक ओवरव्यू देख लेते हैं कि जो एक्ट है, इट अलाउड सेटिंग अप ऑफ अ एंटी करप्शन ombudsman कॉल्ड लोकपाल एट द सेंटर एंड लोकायुक्ता एट द स्टेट. इसकी जो कॉम्पोजिशन होगी, एक चेयरमैन होगा और मैक्सिमम ऑफ 8 members होंगे. Which will act incorporates provision for attachment confiscation of property acquired by the corrupt means even while the prosecution of the pending. The states हैं, they will have to institute लोकायुक्त within the 1 year of the commencement of the act. Jurisdiction क्या होता है लोकपाल का? जो लोकपाल है जो वो है लोकपाल जो है वो इंक्वायर कर सकते हैं into the allegations of corruptions against anyone who is or has been prime minister or a minister in a union government, any member of the parliament, as well as the officials of the union government under groups A, B, C, and D. The body also covers complaints against chairpersons, members, officers, directors of any board, corporation, society, trust, or autonomous bodies, either established by an act of parliament. ये थोड़ी ध्यान देने वाली बात है, जो कि एक्ट ऑफ पार्लियामेंट के थ्रू एस्टैब्लिश किए गए हों और होली और पार्टली फंडेड बाय द सेंटर एंड एनी सोसाइटी और ट्रस्ट और बॉडी दैट रिसीव्स फॉरेन कंट्रीब्यूशन अबव 10 लाख की जो 10 लाख का कैप है, ये थोड़ा ध्यान में रखना. पावर्स क्या होते हैं लोकपाल के? तो the Lokpal will have the power of superintendence and direction over any investigation agency, including CBI, for cases referred to them by Ombudsman. As per the Act, the Lokpal can summon or question any public servant if there exists a prima facie case against the person, and any officer of the CBI investigating a case referred to it by Lokpal shall not be transferred without the approval of the Lokpal. ये तो ऐसा नहीं होता कि भाई तुम इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हो, कि वो मूवीज में नहीं दिखाया, तुम इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हो, तुम अच्छे ऑफिसर हो, तुम्हारा ट्रांसफर करा देंगे. नहीं, ये सब अब नहीं होता है. एन इन्वेस्टिगेशन मस्ट बी completed within 6 months and special courts will be instituted to conduct trials on cases referred by Lokpal. Sealed cover jurisprudence. So Supreme Court है in media one ban case has reiterated its intention to examine the legality of governments filing incriminating material in sealed covers without sharing the information with the accused or third party. The issue of sealed cover jurisprudence came up in the previous hearing of March 15th when the center wanted to pass on the court its internal files regarding the ban in sealed cover. अब ये sealed cover jurisprudence इतना fancy term है, ये होता क्या है? तो ये एक practice है which is used by the Supreme Court and sometimes the lower courts as well for asking for or accepting information from the government agencies in sealed envelopes that can only be accessed by the judges. While a specific law does not define the doctrine of the seal cover, the Supreme Court derives its power to use it from Rule 7 from the Order 13th of the Supreme Court Rules and Section 123 of the Indian Evidence Act 1872. ये है क्या, ये जो रूल 7 है, ये बताता है कि stated under the said rule that if the chief justice or court directs certain information to be kept under seal cover or considers it to be confidential in nature, no party would be allowed access to the contents of such information. रीजंस क्या होते हैं कि भाई जब मैटर जो है इट इज पर्टेन टू बी ऑफिशियल सीक्रेट एक्ट्स के अंदर आता है, या फिर जो है वो टू मेंटेन पब्लिक कॉन्फिडेंस इन गवर्नमेंट एजेंसी, या डेलिकेट इंटरनेशनल नेगोशिएशंस होते हैं उसके अंदर, या सेंसिटिव होता है, सिक्योरिटी के लिए सेंसिटिव होता है, या तो फिर डिटेल्स अबाउट सर्वाइवल ऑफ सेक्सुअल असॉल्ट्स और चाइल्ड चाइल्ड अब्यूज, ये सब चीज़ों के अंदर आता है, या डिस्क्लोजर समटाइम्स अफेक्टिंग ऑन ऑनगोइंग इन्वेस्टिगेशन। इश्यूज क्या है इसके ऊपर, तो देखिए बेसिकली इशू तो ये है कि अगेंस्ट द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड अकाउंटेबिलिटी, it reduces the scope of reasoning, obstruction of fair trial and adjudication, and it is arbitrary in nature. Press freedom index, the 2022 World Press Freedom Index जो है ये 20th edition है, was recently published by Reporters Without Borders. It was released on the World Press Freedom Day, which is on 3rd May. The report points to an overall twofold increase in media polarization, creating divisions within countries and between countries at the international level. ये वर्ल्ड प्रेस फ्रीडम इंडेक्स होता क्या है, तो ये 2002 के बाद से कंटिन्यूसली पब्लिश किया जा रहा है बाय रिपोर्टर्स सैंस फ्रंटियर्स, RSF, या रिपोर्टर्स विदाउट बॉर्डर्स, ये फ्रेंच टर्म है, बेस्ड इन पेरिस। ये जो RSF है ये एक इंडिपेंडेंट एनजीओ है विद कंसल्टेटिव स्टेटस विद द यूनाइटेड नेशंस, यूनेस्को, द काउंसिल ऑफ यूरोप एंड द इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द फ्रैंकोफोन, ठीक है, विच इज IOF. The index ranks countries and regions according to their level of freedom available to the generalists, and however it is not an indicator on the quality of the journalism. इंडिया का परफॉर्मेंस जो है इट हैज फॉलन 8 places from 142 to 150 in 2022 out of 180 countries. India's ranking, as per the report, has fell on the back of increased violence against journalists and a politically partisan media, which has landed Press Freedom Index in a state of crisis in the world's largest democracy. Media in India, among nations reputed to be more democratic, faces pressure from increasingly authoritarian and or nationalist governments. परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ अदर कंट्रीज, पहला जो है वो नॉर्वे है, फिर डेनमार्क है, फिर स्वीडन है, एस्टोनिया है, फिनलैंड है। रशिया जो है वो 155th पोजीशन पे था, एंड नॉर्थ कोरिया एज ऑलवेज इट रिमेंड एट द बॉटम ऑफ द लिस्ट, दैट इज जो 180 कंट्रीज की लिस्ट है उसके सबसे नीचे था। इंडिया के नेबर्स के साथ इंडिया की क्या थी, तो देखिए म्यांमार जो है 176 पोजीशन पे था, चाइना 175, पाकिस्तान 157, श्रीलंका 146, बांग्लादेश 162। अबाउट द वर्ल्ड प्रेस फ्रीडम डे, तो यूनेस्को ने इसको प्रोक्लेम किया था इन 1993, जो 1991 का कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था यूनेस्को का, उसके रिकमेंडेशन पे। प्रेसिडेंट्स रूल, the Union Home Ministry Amit Shah has ruled out the possibility of President's rule in the state as it would be improper to dismiss an elected government backed by a huge mandate. इशू क्या था, जो डिमांड फॉर सेंट्रल रूल इन द स्टेट इज राइजिंग, alleging collapsing law and order. Activists cited political killings, gang rapes, other forms of violence to substantiate the demand. What is the president's rule in the Indian context? So Article 356 जो है of the Constitution of India gives the President of India the power to suspend state governments and impose president's rule of any state in the country. If he satisfied that a situation has arisen in the government of the state cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of the कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो बेसिकली प्रेसिडेंट जो है उनके पास ये अधिकार होता है कि वो किसी भी स्टेट की गवर्नमेंट को सस्पेंड करके वहां पे प्रेसिडेंट रूल को इम्पोज कर सकते हैं, अगर उन्हें ये लगता है कि जो गवर्नमेंट है उस स्टेट की वो जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के प्रोविजंस के अकॉर्डिंग जो है वो काम नहीं कर पा रही है। इट इज ऑल्सो नोन एज द स्टेट इमरजेंसी और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल इमरजेंसी। Upon the imposition of this rule, there would be no council of ministers. The state will fall under the direct control of the union government, and the governor will continue to head the proceedings representing the President of India. Parliamentary approval and duration. A proclamation imposition president's rule must be approved by both the houses of the parliament within the 2 months from the date of the issue, and the approval takes place through simple majority in either houses, that is a majority of the members of the house present and voting. And the validity जो होती है इसकी, it is for 6 months. और हर 6 महीने में उसको 6 महीने के लिए एक्सटेंड किया जा सकता, 3 महीने के लिए एक्सटेंड, सॉरी 3 साल के लिए एक्सटेंड किया जा सकता है, और हर 6 महीने में जो है इसको अप्रूवल के लिए पार्लियामेंट के लेके जाना पड़ेगा. रिपोर्ट ऑफ द गवर्नर. आर्टिकल 356 जो है इसके अंदर जो प्रेसिडेंट रूल है, इट इज इम्पोज्ड ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट अपॉन रिसीट ऑफ द रिपोर्ट फ्रॉम द गवर्नर ऑफ द स्टेट. तो बेसिकली ये है कि भाई गवर्नर अगर प्रेसिडेंट को बोलेंगे, क्योंकि गवर्नर सेटिस्फाइड नहीं है, तो वो प्रेसिडेंट जो है वो प्रेसिडेंट रूल लगा सकते हैं. इसके लिए गवर्नर को एक रिपोर्ट पेश करनी होगी. रिवोकेशन कैसे होता है? A proclamation of the president's rule may be revoked by president at any time by subsequent proclamation. और इसके लिए कोई पार्लियामेंट्री अप्रूवल की जरूरत नहीं होती. India's bid for permanent membership in reformed UNSC NSG. France has reiterated its commitment to support India's bid for permanent membership in UN Security Council and Delhi's entry into the nuclear suppliers group. The demand has been supported by 4 out of 5 permanent members, which have bilaterally expressed support for India's candidature. Why does India deserves a permanent seat at UNSC and NSG? देखिए, इंडिया जो है वो फाउंडिंग मेंबर है यूनाइटेड नेशंस का. इंडिया टिल नाउ हैज बीन इलेक्टेड फॉर मल्टीपल टर्म्स फॉर अ 2-year नॉन परमानेंट member of the seat at the UNSC and NSG. And India has almost twice the number of peacekeepers deployed on the ground than by P5 countries. That is, जो 5 countries हैं इसमें already, उनके combine करके भी इतने नहीं थे जितने इंडिया के थे. India being the largest democracy and the second most populous country, ठीक है, and soon to become most populous in the world. India acquired the status of nuclear weapon state in 1998, and it is an undisputed leader of the third world countries as reflected by its leadership role in the non-allied movement. NSG क्या है? तो NSG basically 48 member elite club है of countries that deals with the trade in nuclear technology and materials, beside contributing to the नॉन प्रोलिफरेशन ऑफ न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स की जो नाम की टीटी थी, नॉन प्रोलिफरेशन ऑफ न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स को कंट्रीब्यूट किए बिना. बॉट इन 1974 इन रिस्पॉन्स टू द इंडियन न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट, जिसको स्माइलिंग बुद्धा कहा गया था. इट इज अ ग्रुप ऑफ न्यूक्लियर सप्लायर कंट्रीज दैट सीक टू प्रिवेंट न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन बाय controlling the export of materials, equipment, technology that can be used to manufacture nuclear weapons. इसके जो guidelines है, they are not binding and they first met in November 1975 in London. इंडिया को क्या benefits होंगे NSG membership के? Timely information on nuclear matters, contributes by way of information, has informed credentials, can act as an instrument of harmonization and coordination, as a part of very transparent process. Opposition of NSG membership bid. तो चाइना जो है, one of the 5 nuclear weapon states, strictly opposes India's NSG bid primarily on grounds of that New Delhi is not a signatory of the NPT. Besides, India's capacity to project its military power beyond the Indian Ocean region is still to be tested. Further, India heavily relies on weaponry imports from US and Russia from its military requirements. So that is all for today. Thank you for watching.